Evening, everyone. Alex Tanner here with Outlier Firefighters. This is Talkin' Shop with Outlier Firefighters, episode 22. I'm here with Mike Fox, and you guys are. I know I always say that you're in for a good show, but come on, you're in for a good show. And you guys are really going to enjoy Mike and the wisdom that he shares. And shout out already, we have Gil Singer in the chat saying it's going to be an awesome show, so he would agree. So thank you, Mike, for coming on. Really excited to have you here.
Glad to be here, Alex. And I want to thank you for having me. And I also want to throw a shout out to Craig for suggesting me. I talked to him yesterday, and I'm glad. I thank both you guys. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So we were green rooming, and we have some similarities in our background, being multi generational and some of that stuff. So I think we're just going to jump kind of right into that. So was that your first exposure to the fire service? Was your family, or did you have something else in your life that exposed you to it?
No, it came up through my family. My dad was a fire fan in the city as a kid, and he used to hang out at a firehouse on the west side. And he eventually left the city and came out to Niles and got hired as a firefighter in Niles in 1963. And he was one of the first five full time guys who got hired by the village of Niles. They had one firehouse at the time, and this is what my dad always wanted to do. He, like me, was doing a lot of work that didn't really interest him. He was selling insurance. He did all kinds of stuff. And when he finally got a chance to be on the fire department, that was it for him. He wanted nothing more. So, he would bring that kind of stuff home all the time. And in the beginning, I got I would go over to Station 2 on Dempster and Cumberland and Niles because we live close by. So I'd hang out over there all the time and ride my bike to calls and, stuff like that, stuff every kid does who wants to be a fireman. And so that's where I got the bug. I got on the fire department late. I didn't get on until I was 31. Kind of bounced around other jobs for a while and didn't really get serious taking tests until a little bit later in my 20s. And finally got on in 1983. So I got on in 83 over North Main in 30 years. Four as a paid on call, 26 as a career. And found what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And didn't follow my dad's path or anything like that, but I would run into him at fires once in a while, and he left the job in '86. He had a heart attack and retired. He never came back, and I just kept going. I've been retired 10 years now. I retired in July of 2013, so had a good run. Very proud of the run we had, and the relationships and guys that I got a chance to establish and continue on this day. So I couldn't have think of doing anything else in my entire life. There were guys who will tell you that you've hit the lottery, kinds of platitudes at you about getting the job and all that. And you know what? They're right. They're right. This is the top of the mountain for you if you get on the fire department. At least it was for me.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. You got some shout outs here too. You got Leanhart
Yeah.
in the chat. You've got Vitali. Shout outs again about the Battalion One, not just Battalion One. So they got you.
You guys in Lincolnshire are killing me, man. You guys are killing me with that battalion one. And Leanhard, Chris, you were the guy who first brought it to my attention. Way back when. I don't even know when it was. It must have been 2011, somewhere in there. So, love you guys for sure, for sure.
They're like your hype man. Like you got your whole hype group in the background ready to go. It's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys are sitting in. You're giving up watching the Cubs in football, for me, I'm honored.
Yeah, there it is. So
All right.
talk through your career, right? And we where you progressed through your retirement, and then over the course of that, how did you learn about firefighter culture and values?
Yeah, that's a good one. I, I started out as a grunt, like everybody should or does, and I started off on shift, and at the time, back in though, in the mid '80s, when you came out of the fire academy, you didn't have a Proby book. You didn't have any of these guys to put his arm around you and tell you everything was okay. You got thrown into the fire, literally. I mean, you got just thrown in. And I got hooked up with a guy who became one of my all time mentors. And I'm going to call him the late, great Maynard Williams because he passed away about 4 or 5 years ago. But I got thrown in as a blue shirt and got hooked up with Maynard Williams. And he just he guided me through. I mean, he was always there for me. Got me um, through probation, got me through the tough times, got me through learning equipment. He got me through knowing the culture. He got me through knowing how to apply yourself. And Maynard was the best for me. He was great. I did 13 years as a firefighter medic. I made lieutenant in I don't remember 2000. I made lieutenant in 2000 in the right front seat and made chief in 2007 to retirement. So um, I spent a considerable amount of time as an acting lieutenant too before I actually made LT. I spent a lot of time as an acting lieutenant, and I will tell you that that was where you straddled the fence and you were had one leg on the firefighter side and the other leg on the company officer side, and I thought that was a valuable experience for me. I
Yeah,
got a chance to learn a little bit of authority. I got a chance to see things from the right front seat a little bit instead of the back step guy or the engineer. And that was the 3 or 4 years that we were acting officers was was valuable, very much a valuable time for me, and it made making lieutenant a lot easier. Hardest promotion in the fire service, I think, is going from a blue shirt to a white shirt. So going from blue shirt to lieutenant, because the first thing these guys who love you are going to do for you is test you. You know, as soon as you're the lieutenant, they're going to test you and see where you're at, see what kind of and I had that. It was kind of a hard place for me to be too because you're on the hot seat, and all eyes are on you. And it's different on Monday. You're a blue shirt. On Tuesday, you're wearing a white shirt, so it makes it hard. But you settle in, you get used to it, and you accept the challenges that come your way, and you just learn to kind of slow it down, think things through, and make your decisions. And hopefully, you've made some good ones, made some right ones. So, like I say, and I made chief, and I will tell you that between me, you, and whoever's listening here, I honestly, even though I think I did okay as a district chief, I never really felt like I found my sweet spot. I was always on edge. Was always kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, kind of thing, and I just never really found my spot. I never felt totally comfortable, even though I think I did okay in that. But I I really did enjoy the entire career arc. It was great. It was great. So
that's awesome. We're dealing with a little bit of connection
yeah,
issues, Mike. So I'm gonna have to maybe figure this out. Um, it's really choppy.
Okay.
I'm telling you, it's Google Meet. I think I'm about done with Google Meet, and this is probably the last time I'm going to use it for one of these. But um, I might try to work in the background here and maybe switch us to Zoom, like in the middle of this. So bear with me while I try to do that. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to throw you the next question because you already kind of mentioned Maynard, and I love people being able to share mentors of theirs early in their career. And is there anything that was a defining moment for you and your relationship with him that you knew, okay, he's going to help me succeed and take me to the next level? Was there a defining moment where that happened for you?
Yeah, Maynard came out of the military. Maynard spent a tour in the Navy, and he spent a tour in the Army. So he came out of the military, came into the fire service, and all of he was about discipline and regimentation and that kind of stuff. And to be honest with you, when he got introduced to me, that was exactly what I needed. It wasn't like I was a wild guy or anything like that, but it turns out, and sometimes you don't know things until you look back on them. But it turns out that I believe that a lot of the leadership traits that I inherited from him. And he was exactly the type of guy that I needed to help me get through the sometimes choppy waters of becoming a serviceable medic and a fireman. Maynard also was a police chief in Oakwood Hills. Uh, I don't think it was a full time department. In fact, I know it wasn't. And so he was he had a lot of coverage out there. So he was very well known in the area, and he was a good guy. He knew his job. And that's the important thing. Maynard knew the fire service. Maynard knew the job. Maynard knew the right thing to do. And I was fortunate enough for him to kind of instill that kind of stuff on me. And I'm so sorry that he passed away like he did. He passed away in Arizona in a motorcycle accident about 4 or 5 years ago, I think, maybe a little bit longer. But right around the time Paul Miller from Des Plaines was killed in a motorcycle accident too. So yeah, but Maynard and I were a good fit. Developed into a pretty damn good friendship. That stuff comes with time too, but he cared for you. That was it. He cared for you. It wasn't like he was just gonna show you a trick of the trade and walk away. He cared. He cared. Every day when we came in, he'd throw me through air packs. And it was just until you can do this stuff with your gloves on and your eyes blindfolded. We were going to do air packs every day. He was just one of those types of guys. And when I got my first fire, he was just happened to be pushing me ahead. I had the knob, and he was just pushing me. He was behind me, and he's saying, move up, move up. I'm right behind you. Don't worry about it, and he got me through it. And after that, you kind of settled in, and I settled in and became good. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I think, honestly, a good mentor has to be. He has to be a hands-on guy. He has to be able to relate to you. He has to care for you. And, Maynard was that. Maynard was that. So when I talk about him, I'm going to kind of call him the late great Maynard Williams because I don't know. I just feel like I have to honor him in a little bit special. His hobby is a fireman in the city who also works as NIPSTA as an instructor. So good kid too. His son was on truck 24 on the far south side, and I thought he was trying to get onto squad 5 down on the south side too. But I think Kevin, his other son, is somewhere out west on a fire department, Kevin Williams. And yeah, Maynard left a good legacy. And I was glad to have hooked up with him.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. To have
Yeah.
that is invaluable over the course of a career. To have that person that just clicks and drives you forward and gives you what you need. Yeah, I love hearing that, and
You're
thank you for
lucky
sharing that.
if you get a guy like that. If you get a guy like that, consider yourself lucky. Or if you're a guy like that, consider yourself lucky because being a mentor, I think, is probably one of the more important jobs in the fire department. I mean, it's a it's a huge responsibility, and you do right by the kid who you're mentoring. And it wasn't like I was assigned like, here's Maynard, he's your mentor or anything, but that's what he became. That's what he became over time. So
Yeah,
was
sometimes
glad to have been paired with him.
yeah, when they get assigned, sometimes it almost I wouldn't say devalues it, but it just doesn't have that same click when somebody just picks you out of the group and just is there for you. It's
Right.
a totally. I've had both. I've had mentors that I've been assigned who ended up being great, but I think the mentors that I found or found me have always taken it to that next level.
Right. Back in the mid 80s, I don't think mentoring was even a part of the fire service. It wasn't like I didn't even know what a mentor was. I had a teacher, I had a guy who was not my instructor, but he was my teacher. He was my guy whenever I needed some advice, or he would tell me when I screwed up. I mean, it worked both ways. And you develop a pretty like that, and then I did with him. So when he retired in '07, he was a district chief. I took his spot in the buggy. So and he went right off to Arizona, and the rest is history, I guess. So I had a couple other mentors, if you don't mind.
Please
Kind of like
share.
Craig and the guys from Lincolnshire. I used to listen to these guys. I used to listen to these guys on the radio all the time. They were Displains chief officers, and at the time we did not run with Displains. Displains was one of these departments that basically stayed within themselves. They never asked for any mutual aid or anything. They just kind of stayed within themselves. It was just their culture. But there were a couple guys who I got to know pretty well over there, Art Zern and Scott Small. And I used to sit on the radio and listen to these guys run their fires. And it was because of these guys that I learned how to set up incident command, how to do a good size up. Not that I didn't have that available to me at North Maine or anything, or through any of the other departments we were running. But these two guys were good at what they did. Much like Craig and myself, when he would listen to me on the radio, I think I learned how to run a fire through Artie and Scott Small. And after everything kind of loosened up and they came into Red Center and started doing auto aid all the time with these guys, I'd kind of push my way and go on the air and go to their fires in the buggy and just go over there and show up, and they would put me to work, and we became really good working partners and really good friends. Because I already worked up at NIPSTA. Scott, I took some initial rope classes with way early on in the '90s, and these two guys were gold. They were gold. And the other guy I want to throw a shout out to is Dave Treforis. Dave was a former chief of Franklin Park, and Dave's history in the fire service goes way back. And he's active today, but he's one of these guys who defines what an old school fireman is. And I don't want to sound out of out of the time period or anything, but I think if somebody were to ask me to define myself, are you old school or new school? I'm an old school guy. Whether that makes me different, I'm sure it does, but I'm an old school guy, and Dave is one of these guys who knows the history of the fire service. I mean, he knows the why of the fire service. He knows why they had 12 ribs on a helmet back in the 1910s. He knows all this kind of stuff, and he and I just hooked up because we both have a love for the tradition of the fire service, and that's that's important. That's important. Having a deep love for the tradition of the fire service is important because you cannot get to the present without understanding what went on in the past, you know. And we NIPSTA, we would have our kids do historic firefighters, or I'm sorry, historic fires. And they would get a class that every company would have to do a historic fire. We tried to keep them local, and they'd have to do the research and do a PowerPoint presentation on a Friday of week 5 or 6 or something like that. And Dave and I would be in the class a lot of these, and these kids had to learn the history of the fire service being at NIPSTA. It wasn't important just to learn how to uncouple hose or roll hose or throw a ladder. You had to know the history of how we got there, because every bit of turnout gear that we have because somebody died doing something else, and you got to know it. You got to know it, and Dave is that guy. So he's working out at the Fire Academy at McHenry County College, I believe, and doing something in the city now. But a couple of years younger than me, but he's a good one. So, I think I surrounded myself with 3 or 4 um, very professional, very proud guys job, and I appreciated them. So,
Yeah.
I think those were the most important guys in my life, career wise.
No,
So,
that's awesome. That's great to have. I mean, such a volume of
yeah,
people, and especially I'm gonna try to transition us to Zoom here, but I wanted to wrap up what we were kind of talking about. I think that there is a loss of holding on to that history right now, and my generation is doing okay with it, but I think we could do better. I think there's a huge disconnect to what we've come from and what makes it not just a job, and what makes it the fire service of what it really is. And I do see that things like that, hopefully that help, how NIPSTA, makes them research and go through that. But unless you're really plugged into it, I don't think on the job people really are as connected anymore. So that's definitely something that we need to do a better job of. My generation needs to do a better job of spreading that around.
right, right.
Uh,
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. What do you want me to do?
this pivot is going to be on the fly, and I'm probably going to mess it up. I'm literally just going to switch this over to Zoom somehow, and I'm going to send you whatever link. I have no idea what I'm doing. So everyone that's watching, please bear with us, because I don't want Mike to get chopped up here. I feel I don't that devalues what he's bringing, and I feel really terrible about that. So we're just gonna fix this somehow. So give me 1 sec.
Okay.
Mike, I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna kick us out of this, and then I will get you back in. Okay?
Okay. All right.
I'm still here. I know you guys can't see me, but we're adapting and overcoming. That's what firefighters do, right? We just wing it and we figure things out. So I think I'm gonna be able to do something here in a second. One way or another. Okay, I'm going to have to. some serious high tech fixing stuff all in the moment here. I can already probably tell that this is going to be better. Sorry, everyone. I just sent Mike the Zoom link. And I'm going to work on getting that up on video somehow. If it's not one thing, it's another, right? Thanks, Craig. I know. Somebody tell a joke or something in the chat so we can figure that out. Oh, man. Progress. Progress is progress. And we're back, kind of. I don't know what this is going to look like. Oh boy. Sorry guys. I'm sorry for the little delay in here. I feel really bad that, Mike's trying to talk and he has no idea that it's cutting out on him, and that's not good. So, thanks Greg. We're almost there. He's just got to get into Zoom. I hope that worked. Hey, while we're sitting here, think of any questions for him. Created a website in 2 minutes. Yeah, I know, and we need a spoiler alert. We're gonna have to have our episode here talking about some big exciting things. coming out from Craig and I, and Mike, and a couple other guys too. So, oh. Might give Mike a call here. I muted myself, Craig. Just, I mean, be nice to Mike.
All right, how we now? Okay. All right.
I hung up the phone. All right, I think we're in. I think we're good. Look at that seamless transition.
Okay. All right, pal. I followed your lead, so hopefully it's better.
we did a workaround to reset everything here, so hopefully that ends up working out.
Okay.
It only took 10 minutes. That's not so bad.
All right. Not bad at all.
All right, those of you that have stuck with through all that, which actually it looks like most of you pretty much did in the chat, so that's a great thing. Thank you for staying with us. We're gonna roll right into it. So you kind of talked about the different levels of service that you've been, right? You've been a blue shirt, you've been a lieutenant, you've been a battalion chief, right? You've gone through all those, and you talked about the transition between blue shirt to white shirt, and the challenges that come with that. Does leadership change throughout those positions? In what ways does it?
Well, I think as leader, I think leadership is a learned skill to some degree. I believe that you learn the basics of leadership as as a acting officer, which is why I thought it was so valuable for me. And as you become further up into the fire department and you become a lieutenant, leadership is learned. I mean, you learn by your mistakes, you learn by your successes. And for me, I I think like a lot of people, I learned from both, and it's what you do with your not so much failures, but from your mistakes and how you apply those. You won't do those things again. And I had my fair share of errors, mostly perception errors and things like that. And I learned from those, and hopefully I got better at them as I progressed through the ranks. And I enjoyed my time, my 7 years as a lieutenant, immensely, and feel that once I really settled in after about a year, 18 months or so, I really felt like I settled in. You know, you get a few fires under your belts, you make a few right moves, you start establishing yourself via your name by working with other towns, by going to other towns' fires, by participating in other towns' trainings, which we did a lot thanks to Red and for opening those doors for us. And leadership is you're going to get better at it. If you really want to be an officer in the fire service, you really are going to get better at leadership, but you got to let it happen. You can't press it. You got to give yourself time. But I believe sometimes guys are referred to maybe mistakenly. You know, just because you wear a white shirt doesn't make you a good leader. Doesn't mean that. And you got to work for it. And the compliments or your reputation will tell you whether or not you're succeeding. Will tell you whether or not you're doing well and doing the right thing. Your guys will tell you doing the right. We came back from a fire, any fire. We would go into the kitchen, no matter what time it was, and we would sit down and we would critique it. We would critique every fire we ever went on, every good 1050 we went on, every extrication call, everything. We would go back to the kitchen and critique it. And that's where you learn about yourself and you learn about the other guys and you learn how strong of a team you have behind you. So leadership for me was something that I had to acquire. I You don't just put on a white shirt and become the boss. You are the boss, but you don't become the boss.
Yeah.
You gotta earn it. You gotta earn it, man. I mean, anybody who thinks they don't have to earn it, or anybody who points to their patch on their shoulder and it says, "You see this? I outrank you." BS. Okay, yeah, I know you outrank me, but if you got to show me that you outrank me, you've already lost the war. So don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Let it come. Okay, make your mistakes. This job will humble you many, many, many times during your career. It's just going to make you. It's going to make you think. It's going to humble you. It's going to make you question yourself. It's going to make you look at yourself in the mirror and say, "Did I do the right thing? Did I do this and that?" I mean, let it happen. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You'll be a stronger guy at the end for having done that. I think, my opinion. Anyway. So
That's great advice. Yeah.
anyway.
Vitaly says here in the chat, a lot comes from performing well in other towns and around your peers, and he says you nailed it when you talked about that. It's the truth. It's representing. You represent your entire organization when you go out of town, right? Not just yourself.
It's funny, Alex. It's just that I was thinking about this and it can sound cornball and corny and all that other crap, but I don't care. But when you get ready to represent the fire service, you're going to represent your job. I mean, it's very important that when you go out on a run, when you get in the rig, anything you do in the firehouse, out on the street, whatever, you're representing the fire service, the overall fire service. We're part of the noblest profession. Once again, I don't want to sound corny, but we are part of one of the noblest professions out there. I mean, we're top notch. We're problem solvers. We represent the American fire service. Doesn't get better than that. That's it. I mean, so when you throw that uniform on, be take take pride in the fact that you're able to do it. You were picked for it. You've been trained for it, and it's a true honor. And I'll tell you something. Just I got into a lot of these observations of mine through the benefit of retirement, because retirement gives you a chance, at least I think, to look at the big picture, look back at the big picture, and look at everything you did, and you can pick things apart. You can look at incidents that happened, and when you're working, you're on the day-to-day kind of stuff at all. But when you retire, sometimes you get a chance to look at overall the big picture and see, you know what? I was there. I went downtown in 1992 and helped them pump the city out because it flooded when that damn thing broke under the river. You know, I was down there. I was part of history then. You know, it was cool. You know, was at the uh, which fire I was at. You know, I was there. I was there. That was me. I was able to do it. And I'm still being humble about it, but the fact of the matter is that we got a chance to do some pretty cool stuff, really, and make a difference in a lot of people's lives. But it's through the umbrella, the looking glass of retirement, that kind of allowed me at some point just say, yeah, pretty cool. Being a fireman was actually doesn't get better than that, you know? So anyway, I don't even know where the hell I was going with that,
Hey,
but
where you went is
I don't know.
great.
I'm giving it back to you.
I it, yeah. I mean, to be able to
I don't
look.
even know how I got there, but I got there. So,
That's what it's all about. I mean, to be able to look back, like you said, I just
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, so many people blink and they don't realize what they're in, right?
yeah,
Until later. You're spot on with that.
right.
So shifting back to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
battalion one, right? And one of the things
yeah.
that the boys were saying about being calm and direct and those things when they heard you on the radio, was that also a developed skill, or do you feel like you were a naturally calmer person that you were able to deflect some of that tension that comes with being really anywhere but in the
I,
car?
I, I had a I had a trouble with that when I got into the buggy, and I'll tell you, the first fire we had, and I remember we got a call for a car fire against the building. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning on Gregory Lane, which is in the northeast part of our district, and it was one of these calls where if you drive down Gulf Road going east, and you're looking pretty good. It was a car actually send it to another car, and I got there first, and I gave a pukey size up. I remember that because the guys told me that, and I gave a size up on that. The first thing I did was get out of the car, and I started to put my gear on, and I'm like, "No, you idiot! You're taking command of this thing. Get back in the car, slow yourself down, and get these guys in here to do their thing." So for me, this calm thing was a learned skill. I had guys who would say when you're really when things are going good for you, the entire fire ground slows way down. When things are a little bit haphazard, you don't know whether or not to turn right, turn left, do this or do that. But when the fire ground starts to slow down and you get a chance to look at things in almost slow motion, you know you're good, you know you're doing good. But for me, I know a lot of guys just operate like that. They're lucky for being able to do that. But I was still in lieutenant mode for a little bit of time. So I had a hard time with that. But eventually I was able to slow it down and do what I had to do, you know, establish my command, get my size up done, get all my benchmarks done and all that other stuff. So I had to work at it. It didn't come easy for me. But eventually, eventually you get it, you know. So it was just one of those things for me I had to work on.
Yeah,
So I did. I think I got it towards the end. It was okay, but we had some pretty good jobs over the years where I would go into Niles and because Battalion 2 was off that day, or I would go into Displays because I was the duty chief assigned to the Displays guys because they were short on admin help for a while, and you learn where you need to be. You learn when to talk on the radio. You learn your spots, and it's I was looking back once again, like I said, retirement and all that other stuff. Looking back, I think I was able to look at some of these jobs that I was on and appreciate my role in them. So I that's what I mean. I think for me though, in answer to the question, this long answer, I had to work at it.
That's great. I think Craig here threw one of your size ups. He's got Red Battalion 1 on scene of a 7-story. No, let's call it a 6-story with a penthouse. Which I don't know what that is, but it's hilarious.
That's the thing. I mean, I think like I was talking about mentors, and I was talking about Artie and Scott in Displays, is that they kind of taught me by listening to the radio. They didn't follow the book. They didn't follow the book of communication where it said you had to be proper and you had to have everything had to be according to the book. I didn't do that. And like Craig said, I can remember changing some of the things I did when it wasn't rough jargon or anything like that, but it wasn't by the book. You called it like you saw it, and appreciated the fact that the guy in the buggy was able to talk like them and communicate to them like they would want to be talked to on the fire grounds. We got the job done all the time, but sometimes if you had to correct a mistake or change some of the things, you just do it, right? I mean, it was just 3 years. So yeah, I don't know if I'd be able to get away with that today because I listened to a lot of the guys on the radio and giving their size up, and they're pretty by the book, man. I mean, there's no that now. I mean, the guys who are in the buggies these days are pretty much following something. But I just it was just me. I was just being natural,
I'm with you. I think that
I guess. So
with
it was okay.
I think with Maydays and that especially, I'm finding that one of the more national trends is plain English, is getting out of that structured procedural. Hey, I don't know. Hey, Bob, Alex, and Mike are your RIT team. They're coming in to get you. Versus like, firefighter, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. RIT 1 is coming, blah blah blah. On this, it's just that seems to become a more modern trend right now with radio traffic. It's a little more of what you would do, is some plain English, some making people feel not so robotic, right? I think that there's value in that.
Yeah, I remember. We had a laundry room fire, and one of our we had a ton of these 2-story 16 units in there, and we get a call for a smoke in the laundry room. Well, 99 times out of 100, this is an overloaded dryer, an overloaded wall. That was it. And they were nothing. We'd open a window, we'd vent it, and reset the alarm and go home. Well, the guys get there this time, and they had a worker, So they get back to me and they go, 1A Battalion 1, go ahead, 1A. He said, we're going to have to pull a line here. We got a working fire in this laundry room. It looks like it's extending up to the second floor. Okay, good. So, I started just send an engine truck 60 or truck 81 now, but you got the roof, and at that time we went to code 4s. We didn't have this working fire thing. So I would ask, oh, you better give me a code 4 here, and you'd get all these additional companies coming. And we, we got the fire now. I remember telling to one of my officer that day, I said, hey, Steve, are losing this thing? Let me know what the hell's going on here. And he said, yeah, we're winning. We got it, and that type of thing. And I caught a little heat for that, but never was like, don't do it again. It was just like, hey, Fox, I heard you on the radio. I heard you on the radio the other night. Did you win or lose? Okay, I won. So I said, well, at least somebody's listening. And but it was that kind of stuff. It was
Yeah.
loose. It was loose, and I think a lot of guys appreciated that. And I didn't do it for that; it was just my way.
Yeah.
So that's it. Yeah, it's okay.
My dad
It's all
used to
right. A
make
lot
fun
of
of me.
us. A lot of,
Oh no, you're fine.
mhm.
But my dad would listen. He doesn't now, but I worked up in Antioch before I worked now in Lake Zurich, and I was a company officer up there, and I spent a little bit of time in the car, not a ton. But he would listen. My dad would listen to me on the radio because he wanted to, keep track of what was going on with me and that kind of stuff. And I would get text messages sometimes, and I'll never forget one of them. It was, "Hey, Dan Aykroyd, you can calm down with the fire alarm at Dunkin' Donuts." And I didn't realize I got this
Yeah.
thick Chicago accent when I talked on the radio, and he made fun of me for it. And I'll just never forget getting back in the rig after resetting the alarm, reading that on my phone, like, oh, thanks, Dad.
That will stick with you forever. So that's good stuff.
But
That's
like you
good
said,
stuff.
if nobody
Yeah.
says stuff, you never really are gonna. You don't know what you sound like on the radio until somebody tells you. And 9 times out of 10,
Right.
if you do it
Right.
right, no one's gonna say anything anyway. You just kind of have your style, I guess. Until you say something weird, then everyone's gonna talk to you about it. But
Right. Right. Listen, we got the job done. We were always professional
yeah,
about it. We were just, I was just a little different. Not much different than my boys in displays. Just a little bit, I guess, different. So a little looser. It was
ah,
good though.
yeah. So you've spent some time NIPSTA teaching fire academies and going through that process. We talked in the green room before, and we'll talk about peer support after this. But you still are active in teaching
Yeah.
other things other than the fire academy, which is pretty awesome. So, how did you find that? What are you actively doing over at NIPSTA right now?
Well, I don't do much at NIPSTA now, but because I transitioned over to Morgan Grove, I do inspections there. So I kind of left NIPSTA about a year ago. But the how and why that I got into it was we used to have these spring and fall Mavis drills every year at NIPSTA, where all the companies in Division 3 would rotate through, and we do live burns and auto extrication and some classroom, but we would do Mavis drills every fall. And anyway, I was able to get into the fire academy as an instructor, and I was there for the first class in 2009, and we had a pretty. I think we only had 9 kids in the class, and we went through some growing pains, but we had a great group of instructors because everybody who was working at NIPSTA wanted to be there. Everybody, firemen throughout the division and even outside the division, but we had great instructors over there. So our fire academy started to grow. So I think somewhere around um, 2012, so I got a offer to become a coordinator. We had 3 coordinators who ran the program, and the program some steam. Had a good word about it. We were starting to draw from other places other than Division 3. We wound up going hitting Northwest Illinois. We wound up getting kids in from Bloomington, So we were starting to draw kids from all over, all word of mouth, not a lot of advertising. So yeah, I took up the job and started to be a coordinator, and we ran 4 programs a year, and it was a 320-hour state program. We followed the curriculum from the state, but I think we put together a really good program that focused on, yes, the skills, yes, the classroom. Like we talked about earlier, we wanted to make sure that we included the history of the fire service. We had a good calisthenic program. We challenged kids all the time. We did weekly evaluations on these guys and gals, and sent them out to the bosses. And we developed a really good program that started to open some eyes. And I was able to put in, like all the coordinators we were able, and the with the suggestions of our huge group of instructors, we were able to put some great new improvements into the program. Uh, Very wantable. Kids wanted to come up there. Bosses liked the product that they got back, which was the main thing. Was that when the Chiefs after graduation got these guys back to the firehouse, these guys were ready to go. These guys knew how to clean a toilet. They knew how to mop, do all this stuff. You had a housework in the morning, housework in the evening. The last thing, your lockers were inspected all the time. I mean, we had it covered, and I think we did a really good job. And plus, our training was done by top-notch guys, because the guys and for me, when I retired, I left to become, I was already a coordinator, but I would be able to spend more time as a coordinator, because it was such a natural transition for me to leave the fire service and go to NIPSTA, because it was like going from my department to a medium-sized fire department. I mean, we had gear, we had lockers, we had rigs, we had everything. It was like going to a going to another fire department, and it was a fire department where everybody you worked with was a wannabe, a good guy. And we rode that for quite a while, and our enrollment wound up getting bigger and bigger. We originally were going to cap it at 25, and we figured we can't handle any more than 25. So one day, Harvey, the guys from Harvey just show up. There's 8 guys from Harvey. They just showed up on the first day of the class begging for 8 spots. They had just hired these guys. They got a safer grant, and they needed a place to put their guys and put them into a program. So they drive them up to NIPSTA, and we had already started class. It was the first day of the new class. And these guys come in and they beg to get in there, and they said, okay, we'll let these guys in. So now we went from 25 to 33. That was the first class that we had more than 25 guys. So we made it work. We did good. We made it work. And after that, they took the 25 limit down, and I think we had one class that was over 40. It became, and we ran 4 a year, and they were full. They told us originally, they said, I don't think you want to run a winter class here. Or was it a summer class? Because it was too hot in the summer. But they said, no, we have the enrollment. We can't turn these kind of and all that, but proud of what we did with that program. I ran it with Scott Exo, who was a district chief of Morton Grove, who's now a training officer in Wheeling. Kenny Korber, who was in Deerfield and now runs the fire program there. Doug Schick is a chief, hazmat chief in the city. He was one of our coordinators for a while, and we did very good work, very proud work. And I think the 450 firemen that we were able to put through when I was there, I think was very proud of the guys who were able to go back to their departments and become really good firemen. At least for the 9 weeks that they were there, that they were able to meet all the benchmarks and goals, and have pretty good confidence that they were able to go back and do well and be good firemen. So yeah, I'm very proud of it. We had great training, great training. I mean, good props Most of it was in the beginning was built by the guys because we didn't have a lot of money to buy anything really, and it was just kind of we piecemeal it. Our SCBA props were all homemade. Our hangar was done by the guys. It was all it was all done by the instructors, and I mean, nights, weekends, weekend nights, and it was all for the success of the program. It paid off. Paid off. We had a great program.
Yeah.
I think Craig probably knows some guys who came. I'm sure we had some Lake Zurich guys there at some point, but I know we had some Lincolnshire folks in there off and on. So we wound up having a pretty good reach all over. So
Yeah, yeah.
it was good.
They
Very
had a
proud.
point. I know because I came through the Quad Two Academy up north, but I know they got to a point there where
Mhm.
in Antioch where they would actually split it off and they would send some Antioch people to NIPSTA. I have a couple friends that worked for Countryside Fire Department that went through NIPSTA. So NIPSTA did have, especially that fire academy, did have a wide reach. A lot of people from a lot of places all over Illinois. So it's definitely an
Yeah.
accomplishment.
Well, our only competition, yeah, the only competition that I believe we had at the time was Romeoville.
Yeah,
That guys would and they would send. Sometimes it was based on the dates that the programs ran. That if they hired a guy and they needed him on the job soon, and Romeoville was had a class coming up, they would send him to Romeoville. But Bloomington still to this day, because I was over there a few weeks ago, and I ran into one of the captains who was up there checking out one of their candidates. Bloomington, Illinois, corner from IFS. I. They wanted nothing to do with that for any. I don't know anything. Well, actually, I do, but they wanted to come to NIPSTA, so they would send their guys up there, put them up in a hotel, and keep them up there for 9 weeks. I mean, they'd be there from Sunday to Thursday, check out Thursday night, go home after class on Friday, and come back and do it all over again. But these guys drove right past Romeoville and they came up to NIPSTA. So we had Decatur up by us. Now Decatur's a long way away, so we were we had a pretty good reach, and it was word of mouth.
yeah,
That's it. We didn't really advertise that much. In fact, I don't know if we did it all, but there was a reason that the guys were loyal to us, and they liked the product they got back. They liked the guys they got back, and first being having evaluations done every week on their guys, honest, truthful evaluations. I think every chief kind of likes the evaluations and the personnel file of their guy when they came back to start their career there. They had a pretty good idea of what they were getting,
yeah,
And yes, we drummed some guys out. Yes, there were kids who came through there who didn't weren't going to make it. No matter how much we helped them, they weren't going to make it.
yeah,
So yeah, we drummed some guys out. It wasn't us. The department had to do that kind of stuff, but not everybody's cut out for this gig, right?
yeah,
So, um, yeah. So it's better to find out there than to find out 5 years on the job after they've made probation and that kind of stuff. So
yeah. They're
anyway,
not going
proud of it.
anywhere. Yeah.
Proud of it.
Uh, your
Yeah.
your daughter says you're doing
Right.
great. By the way, through that in the chat, your daughter Allison is in here.
Oh,
Andy Rappaport, who is your nephew, also says
yeah,
you're doing a
Sarah
great job.
Allison. Okay.
Yeah. And pretty cool
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Jake Gross
All
says
right.
that.
Hi, Andy. Hi, Sarah.
Oops, sorry, I cut you off. um, Jake Gross is in here. He says class 1303. So there's there's people all over that went through for sure.
Yeah. All right, Jake. Where's he on? You know?
I don't know,
Where
Jake. Where
Jake is on, what department he's on.
throw it back in here, Jake, and let us know what department you're from. But we're going to shift towards our next topic, which was peer support. So,
Yeah.
This was one thing that you threw in here. Jake's from Long Grove, by the way.
Okay, all right.
Which, Jake, I feel like I should know you because you're my neighbor. But maybe one day we'll meet on the job if Lake Zurich and
Yeah.
Long Grove could ever figure that whole thing out that they're maybe thinking about doing. But anyway, peer support, which is something you found over the course of your career, and I'd love for you to just share that.
Well, this is kind of complicated, so I'll try and take it step by step. But I think for me, it started with we had a suicide on our job. That was in 2006. The suicide didn't happen in the firehouse, but he was an active fireman, and it happened off the job. But the way this went down was we had a guy named Dave Nebar who came out of the Navy, and he was a nuclear tech on a submarine. So this guy was a very, very intelligent guy, a local football at Glenbrook South, and didn't really have any family. He had some cousins and an aunt and uncle, but his parents were divorced and whatnot. So Dave came on the job and becoming a very angry young guy. In the firehouse, Dave was out on the street. He couldn't have been nicer. I mean, if we were to go to some elderly lady who fell off the toilet 3 times, he could not have been nicer. Never a cross word, never anything, never any resentment. He'd help her like it was his own mother. And but in the firehouse, he was an angry guy. Well, it turned out that Dave had a circle of friends, and a lot of them were drinkers. So he worked Thanksgiving in 2006. Happened to be the cook that day. Guys had traditional, and but Dave didn't have any family to bring there, so he did the cooking and all that. Had a good day. The guys had an average day as far as runs go and things of that nature. And he was never one of the guys that changes shifts at 0800. He was out. He just put his gear in the locker, got dressed, and left, and never stuck around the coffee table or anything like that. But on the way out that day, apparently told the guys, he said, listen, fellas, I'll see you Sunday. He said, have a good day, stay safe, and see you then. And he left. Okay. That Friday night, Saturday, doorbell rang, and there was a Palatine cop and a Cook County cop there. And the district chief on duty got up, answered the door, and said, you have a firefighter named David Nebar who works here? Yes, I do. Well, we regret to inform you that he had a shooting in a friend's house in Palatine, and they were cleaning guns in the garage. There was alcohol involved, and Dave just put a 22 into nothing. So Saturday morning, I was on duty, and I came in, and Jim Reed says, pulls me on the side, and he said, "This happened to Dave," and everybody nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew how to handle it. We'd never had a death in our family before, our fire service, and it just shocked everybody. And there we are. We're left to figure out how to pick up the pieces, what to do. We still had to run our shift. We still had to do everything we were supposed to do that day, and things kind of. But we had no guidance about how. So it turns out that Northbrook, after Wayne Lackbutt died in the Neiman Marcus incident, Jay Reardon developed all these checklists about what to do for funerals, line of duty, death funerals, and we were able to get a hold of some of these things and put on after the funeral. which was sometime during the week, the boss brought in the CISD team, takes the entire fire department out of service. Everybody's ordered in, no matter what, you were ordered in. And we went downstairs on a Sunday morning, huge circle. There were two facilitators there, and they said, okay, we would like to go around one by one, and you tell us you would like to what you would like us to know about Dave Niebar. What about Dave Niebar? And we went around. It took 4.5 hours for everybody to say what they had to say. And at the very end, what we discovered was that everybody knew that Dave was an alcoholic and nobody did a thing about it. Nobody did anything about it. It was a complete indictment on the fire department. Everybody knew it, but nobody did anything about it. And we had a deal, and we didn't deal with that very well because, truth be told, nobody did a damn thing about it. We didn't change anything. We just went on I guess we just went on. We just didn't change anything. We didn't encourage counseling. I don't know what we would have done, to be honest with you, but you figure that if there's a line of duty death in your organization, that something has to be done to recognize what we just went through. But fact of the matter is that we didn't do anything about it. So Dave wound up being honored the proper way. We honored him in the firehouse the proper way, but it was like we never spent any significant amount of time talking about it anymore. It was a hard thing. It was a very hard thing. But, heals things, I guess, and, you move on. A little bit out of sequence, but as we moved on from that, I in particular had an incident, and I think a lot of guys might have this particular type of call in their career at some point. I had a little girl, 7-year-old girl, Melanie Beltran, who was murdered by her mother on a Monday or Tuesday night during the summer. And the story of this one was, real quick, is that our guys right after dinner got sent out to a battery victim, and we were in this courtyard, and there was some gang activity going on, and some guys were busting heads with pipes and things like that. So the ambulance had one victim, and they took him to the hospital, and we get another call. And sometimes when you got on the radio, the way the dispatcher talked, their inflection makes you think like something of significance is going on. And I remember the dispatcher saying, "Engine 1, are you available?" "Yeah, we're available." It was what was the address? Blank, blank, blank on Kennedy, right down the street. We've got a girl with trouble breathing. Okay, we're going. So we get ambulance 2 from Niles as our ambulance when we're over there, and we're tied up. So we get over there, walked into the apartment, and there was a little girl, Melanie, laying in the only thing I can describe it as a burial dress, laying with her arms off to the side, and just like she would be laying if she was in a casket. And she's in a beautiful dress. There's 3 kids in the corner next to the mother who are not saying anything. The whole situation was wrong. The whole thing was wrong. Anyway, Melanie's taking agonal breaths. We were up there with a jump bag. We called the ambulance 2 and told them, "Bring your bag. She's got to go right now," because I can see Lutheran General right from where we were. Okay, level 1. She's going there right now. And they brought her over to Lutheran. They stabilized her. She died the next morning. But she was beaten and bruised from the top of her head to the bottom of her feet. And I don't want to go into the abuse of her, but that one bothered me. That one hung for other reasons, just stuck with me. I couldn't get my mind. So as the officer who wrote a supplemental report on this particular run, next to the EMS report from the Niles guys, I wrote a supplemental because in a crime scene. So they shut the place down. They had yellow tape up everywhere. They arrested the mother under suspicion, and the kids were taken to put into a DCFS property, and the whole thing was unfolding very quickly. Um, so I they arrested the mother for first degree murder, and the father turns out that they would put Melanie and only feed her by opening a closet. She was chained in the closet. She was beaten in the closet, and it was horrible. It was torture. So anyway, I went through the legal process on that one, and I times about it, and I was ready because they said you're going to get called for the as a witness for the murder trial. Okay, all right. So I'm all prepared for this to do what I know I'm going to do. I said this is my chance to get this lady, to do what I can, lady. Well, the night before I was scheduled to go to trial, they called and they said she re-murdered. There's no trial. So I'm like, okay, I'm glad about that, but what am I going to do with all this built up angst I have, and how am I going to get rid of all this stress that I have because I was ready to do what I had to do in court, and I just now there is no court, so I had to have that. So I had Melanie Beltran in the back of my mind always, and after I retired, I realized that I was a mess. I was really I was really a mess, and I I wasn't a drinker. I didn't take pills. I didn't do any of the, I guess, quote unquote, the traditional ways of acting out or addicted to this. I was just angry, and I think a lot of it stemmed from Melanie, the unfinished, the suicide that we had had on the job that we had did nothing left. Suffice it to say, the job just got a little bit harder for all those years after that kind of stuff, and it does that. I mean, that kind of stuff happens on the job. These are the bumps, the peaks and valleys that I was kind of talking about. So in 2015, I found out about an organization called Illinois Firefighter Peer Support. A guy named Bolingbrook Lieutenant Matt Olson started the group because of issues he had. And basically, what as a peer supporter, you are a trained listener. Okay. They teach you how to listen to guys who are having trouble. And the program basically is a ground level program where if you have an issue and you don't want your chief to know or the department to know, you would call the hotline, and they would hook you up with a peer supporter, and you would be able to handle this with the few visits out firehouse paperwork. So it was that type of a program. And initially it showed a lot of great success. And I felt that if I got into the peer support program, I could help myself as well as help some other guys they if they needed help. And they were very specific with who they hooked a peer supporter up with a client. In other words, now they can get a peer supporter who is in the south suburbs who is going through a divorce and had a pediatric arrest on the job and needs to talk to somebody. Well, they would try and find a peer supporter who kind of had the same, so he could at least relate. So I didn't get that much activity off that, but I was on the website. My picture and bio was on the website. So I got some calls from guys who were local and just wanted to talk. And I would meet guys, and I met a guy in Chick-fil-A. I would met a guy in a live. I met a guy at a VFW hall. So it was outside of the firehouse, and it was just a chance to try and help these guys out who didn't want to flush their career away and just wanted to talk to somebody. And I think we did really good work there because the thing we stressed as peer supporters was that, and this is true, is that you aren't the first guy to have this issue. There are other guys who've had this issue. You're not alone. You're not alone. You try and make these firemen realize that they're not the first guy to go through this. There are other guys who've done this. Let's work this out. Let's help. Let's talk about this. And it was therapeutic for me, and it was therapeutic for them. So I became a peer supporter. But the problem that I had is being a retired guy. Even though there's not a lot of call for retirees who are having mental health issues or having issues. But what I did do for 3 or 4 years was I volunteered my time at Rosecrans, which is a facility in Rockford. And they would, Dan DeGrice, who's a retired battalion chief in the city, started a program up there called the Florian Program. And the Florian Program basically was an intake program it started out as firemen who were having problems and couldn't work anymore. If you fell into that specific group, and the fire department would stand behind you, they would put you and help you go into this 28 to 35-day lockdown program. And you were locked down. That was it. You were there. And they would try and work you through your addiction. You were addicted to pills. You were addicted to booze. You were addicted to whatever. And it's still an active program today. And they let medics in now. They let military guys in there now. And I would go there once a week and just sit down with the group and we would talk. And that was good medicine for the guys who were locked down, and for the guys like me who needed to hear from other people because I was kind of struggling myself. So I did that for several years and kind of backed away a little bit because honestly, as a retiree, you really lose touch with the what's going on now. You lose touch. You kind of lose touch with the current state of affairs and the modern teachings and things like that. And so while I'm still following it, but I'm not really active in meeting up with peers anymore. But for the time that I did it, it was worthwhile because it helped me because I had my own issues too, and I think we also helped some guys through things too. But the point is to me is that I think most guys are gonna catch a call or two that's gonna just hang with you. Somewhere in your career, you're gonna catch a call that's you will look back on and you will say, that one is the one that just hung with me. And, she hung with me. But like I say, looking back on retirement was that what cause started my mental health. Oh, that's the right word. I can look back and tell you what call triggered my um, overall mental health and the way that I looked at things. I mean, I was a brand new paramedic 1988. We didn't have squat one about SOPs for pediatrics. We didn't have them. There was nothing there. I had a thick Bible from St. to keep a 96-year-old guy alive with bicarb and all this other stuff for forever and ever. But when it came to a pediatric, we didn't have anything. So I remember being out on a run with my preceptor, Dave Strom, and we catch a call on Bay Colony, and it was for an infant not breather. The engine got there first, and this lady was running some unauthorized daycare upstairs, and one of the kids who she was caring for apparently aspirated on her own vomit, and she choked to death. And by the time she saw her, she was already gone. So we Ray Boyda, he's got this little baby in his hand and chest compressions like this, and it was like, okay, throw and go. That's what we were gonna do. So I'm with this little child in the back of the ambulance, and this was April of when was my Sarah born? April of '89. That's what it was. I think, honey, if you're listening, I think it was April of '89. Well, anyway, I'm in the back snacking by myself, and I looked down at this baby, and whose face do you think I saw? My daughter, right? I looked down and saw my daughter, and that freaked me out. I mean, it didn't keep me from doing what I could do, which was only chest compressions and putting a little nasal mask on anyway. But I looked down and saw my daughter. So we go to the hospital. They declared the child deceased, and we came back and did our thing. But at that time there was no time to catch your breath. You know why I know that? Because Wednesday was floor day, and the damn captain who was on duty that day when we backed the ambulance in said, "Go change your t-shirt, Fox." He said, "Get out here and help us with the floor." Okay? My head is still spinning. First of all, I'm new. Second of all, we just had a pediatric arrest, my first. And then number three, it's just, I didn't even have time to sit down and finish my report, but that was how it was back then. You just got back to work. There was no what am I looking for? There
Talking
was no
about it.
timeout.
Yeah.
There was no, you just got right back in. Yeah, you just got right back into the saddle and did even something as meaningless was getting the damn floor done, right? So, so that's just how it was. Now, we're having a couple runs when I left where guys were just did their thing, and they had some stabbings and things like that. And one of the on duty and this is fast forward 25 years, right? And he was having none of it. He came back and did his thing. We replaced him. I called a guy in off duty, and I said, "I need you for overtime because I'm sending Dave home." And I did. I sent Dave home, and I hired back a guy because I needed a medic. I mean, that would have been unheard of back in the 80s, and maybe even going back further than that. They just didn't do things that way. So we evolved as a better fire service the more that time went on. There was a more recognizing the fact that this is tough stuff. This is hard stuff. If you're running 15 or 20 calls a day, which towards the end of my career we did, if you were running that kind of call volume a day, and you would wind up having an arrest here, an arrest there, or whatever, it takes a toll on guys, and sometimes as an officer, through and say, "You know what, I'm taking you guys out of service for a couple hours. I can get coverage from any other town around because I can put my hands on 15 ambulances if I'm in Red Center. So that's not an issue. I can get an ambulance, okay? You guys sit for 2 or 3 hours and just relax, okay? I don't want you going on another call. And after that, if you're still not feeling right, I'll replace you. That's part of being an officer. I got to look out for my guys. And so that was not common, but it happened. So I think we evolved as a fire service from when I first got on to when I was making the decision to say, sit, you're out of service. Okay. And then if I needed to, I'll send you home. I'm not going to charge you with any time off. Don't worry about that, but you're going home. You're done for the day. And that was important stuff. I kind of forgot about it until I just thought about it. But yeah, getting back to peer support, there's a lot of roads that led to me getting into peer support. There was a lot of runs that, even though I was, I was an officer, I wasn't riding the ambulance. We still were a assist company, and we still saw this stuff because we had a crappy area. I mean, on Friday, Saturday, Sundays, we had stabbings, we had shootings in the summertime, we had all kinds of stuff going on. So we had a wild area over there. So, you know, we're human. Comes down to it. We're human beings, and this is a tough job to do it. It doesn't just affect guys in the city. You think it does, but the suburbs are sometimes just as crazy and just as
Yeah.
active as a lot of parts of the city. It happens. There's crime out here too. There's murder out here too. There's all kinds of mayhem going on out here too. And yeah, I mean it affects us. It affects us. So as a boss, it's one of the things you got to be aware of. Look at your people. Look at your guys. Take the temperature of your guys, and when somebody is toast. When somebody is done. When somebody can't do anymore, and it isn't for lack of want. It isn't for lack of desire. It's just that they're beaten up. They're beaten up, and you got to recognize that and take care of it. So, long story to get back to peer support. That's why I got into it, because it affected me. I don't know, I have any idea. I have no clue why I never took a drink. I have no idea why I never took a pill. I don't have any clue. It could have been that easy for me, but I never did that. On top of that, I don't want to touch this one too hard, but our son Dan, who was a 16-year-old, was diagnosed with cancer in 2002. So I I insert that into my journey, and I for 29 months he fought this battle with cancer. As a six passed away at 18 years old, and I one of the biggest frustrations of my entire life was, and it still makes my skin crawl to this day, is the fact that we we would go out and pick up these kids who were all Dan's age, who were stabbed, shot, beaten up, hit with pipes, gang fights, and all that. We'd pick them up, patch them up, put them on a stretcher, and take them to the hospital, only for them to get out and do it again. And while we could do that, and we had the technology and the available to save these guys' lives, I couldn't do one thing to save my own son, not one, you know. And that that still makes my skin crawl, just the fact that we were able to do this for all these careless 16, 17, and 18-year-old kids. But when it came to my own son, not one thing. So, you put that into the mix amongst other things, which I don't really want to get into um, now. But you know, it's the whole ball of wax. It's the big picture. It's the whole thing. It's everything. Sometimes it just comes together and forces you to do uh, forces you to do things on. She was a wreck. I don't know how she was able to get through it. She was an absolute wreck. And then, for me to come home with my anger issues, and my issues, it was tough. It was tough. And I still had two kids who were living at home at the time, and they had their own. They were teenagers, so they had their own things. Whatever. There's a lot of tangents. It's not just work; it's what you bring and how you bring it home, because this job can be as tough on your spouse as it is on you, because you know how it works when you get on this job, and your wife will say, "Hey, honey, how was work today?" And you'll say, "Well, we had this call, and this call, and this death, and this, that. And then after a little while, you're like, why the hell am I telling my wife that? She's home raising 2 kids. Why am I telling her about this? So now it winds up, well, how was work today? It was fine. And then you don't say anything,
Yeah.
you don't say anything more about it, right? Because you got to protect yourself, and you don't want to bring that stuff home to your wife and family. And so you're shutting her down. And it isn't right, but that's the nature of the job
Yeah.
too. So anyway, I don't know. That's pretty much how I got into peer support. I highly recommend the program. And if anybody on our job needs an entry level person to talk to, give the peer support hotline a call. They have a 24-hour hotline, and they would get back to you within 24 hours and try and hook you up with somebody who can identify with your problem and help you through it. I think we have plus peer supporters in the state, so we've got the help out there. So I encourage everybody, if you think you need it, please try and admit it to yourself that you're having an issue and call. So
I also
that's
through
my
the
peer support
website
story.
Up in the chat here too for anybody that needs to share it or use it themselves. At least it's a jumping off point. And then if you're listening to this on Spotify, it's www.ilffps.org if you're looking to go that
Yeah.
route too. So, Mike, thanks for
Very
sharing all that.
worthwhile. Well, that's was the right form for me to do it. So
Yeah.
to do it. So yeah.
So let's transition into a couple of these other questions. So I asked the same couple questions to everybody, to kind of close it out. So but we still probably got time. So don't feel rushed to answer these by any stretch of the imagination. And they've kind of changed over the course of me doing all these episodes. But I right now I've got 4. So the first one is, what's one mistake that you've made and learned from on the job?
So I was thinking about that, and I became obsessed with, and this is probably weird, but I became obsessed with apparatus positioning. And you know what I mean by that, right? I mean, where you put your first engine, where you put your first truck, where's your second engine going to go? Because I was involved in a couple in the beginning that didn't go so well. And there has never been an adage truer than the first 5 minutes determines the next 5 hours. And that is as true can be, because I wound up making a mistake with putting an engine in the wrong spot and never really recovered properly from it. So I would try as much as I could, especially when I was a chief, is that I would make sure that apparatus position. And here's why. Because in North Maine, any fire, we would guaranteed to get suppression rigs from at least 3 towns. So if we had a fire, I'm going to get Niles rigs, I'm going to get Des Plaines rigs, I might get Glenview and Park Ridge. So 3 or 4 towns are coming into our fire call. Every one of these towns operates on a different SOG than we do. Not that different, but different enough, right? So I would always have this issue like, okay, where the hell am I going to put Glenview engine 7? Because we don't work with Glenview that often, but they're the second engine coming in on this. If I had 3 or 4 stations in one town, I would issue, because guys would know that this is where they're going to put themselves on a fire call, because we're all one department. We had 3 or 4 different departments on every structure fire to deal with, and it made it hard. So I'm working extra hard to try and make sure that I get the second engine, third engine, the first truck, the second truck. Where am I going to set EMS up to do this stuff right? So it's kind of wacky, but I became kind of a student of apparatus positioning because that didn't really impact the outcome, but it impacted the way we got to the outcome. So I just wanted to make sure, because you look at you can go on any YouTube you want, and bring up New York City or Chicago or any of these bigger towns, and just look at the overview of where they position their rigs, and they're always the same. I mean, the first engine in the city pulls past the fire building because the truck gets sector A. The second engine is going to back down to the first and be his feeder, and then there's the second truck going to go. So it's kind of like poetry in motion when it works right. But by us, we had to work hard to make it work right, because we just a fair amount of freelancing too. And you got to nip that stuff in the bud, because freelancing, putting yourself where you think you want to put yourself because you know better, and disregarding an order from the incident commander, and that isn't right. So that was my thing, because of a screw up, was because I just I just wanted to make sure, because honestly, you can't fix that. If you screw up, you can't move engines around, you can't move trucks around. If you screw up, you got to live with that screw up, and that was me. I became pretty anal about that kind of stuff. So every time we had a fire and we had a critique and we brought guys in, not everybody would show up, but we brought guys in and we would go over it. That's my first thing, for me anyway. And I think the other guys did the same thing, because fire service, one of the big things that everybody in the fire service seems to complain about is that we operate as 3 different shifts. That gold shift does things differently than black shift does. Black shift does things different than the red shift does, and we operate as we're like 3 independent fire departments. So we got to try and fix our own in-house stuff before we can do better outside. So that was our goal, I think, was to try and let's get on the same page here, fellas, but it was weird because structure fire responses by us were never the same, depending on what grid it was on and whether we were south or north would determine that we would get Glenview instead of Park Ridge. And so it just made it tough. So it was one of those ongoing things, but that was my thing. I just wanted to make sure I got that right.
Yeah.
Every time, you know how it is when you get back from fire and take at the kitchen table, and you lay in bed at night and you're just looking up and you're thinking about what the hell could I have done differently here? And you replay it over and over and over. At least I don't know if everybody does it, but you replay it over and over, and I'm like, okay, next time I'm going to get it. So I worked extra hard to make sure I got it. So that's it.
No, it's one of my favorite trains. We can project, onto a whiteboard, and we will take like Google Earth from the satellite and just throw a marker at somebody and go, all right, you're the next rig up. Where are you going to park? You're this. Where are you going to park? Where's your hydrant? And I feel like some of those trainings are just so much better than, not better, but they're a necessity, right, for people to work through those things. I love those trainings because then if you don't have a department standard, like I know there's a lot of departments that have an SOG about where everyone's supposed to park and all that fun stuff. When you don't have that, then at least you know what other people are thinking. If you've acted it and you've rehearsed it out, even if it's just markers and whiteboard, like it's invaluable.
Right. Well, your SOGs have to be able to give you some latitude.
Yeah.
You have to have some wiggle room in yours, because like you were saying, here's where you're going to park. Well, what happens if I park there on this particular day for whatever reason? So you have to be able to, adapt and overcome, as the expression goes, and make sure you can still stay within the spirit of it, but get it done.
Yeah.
You know, get it done. And that's why that's it's important, I think, to have that latitude in your SOGs, that where you can still get the job done, but maybe you work outside the lines a little bit. So I can't worry. You know what, Alex? I could never sit there and worry about what kind of crap I was going to catch from a chief later on. And I had a job to do. I never once thought about what kind of crap I was going to catch. Listen to this. We had a fire in 1995. There's three guys on the engine. Me, the Lieutenant Ira Good, and the late great Maynard Williams. He's my backstep guy. So I'm engineer this day. We got time for this?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do we have time for me to tell this?
Absolutely.
Okay. So anyway, we get a call for smoke in the area. Okay, so it was at Golf and D. Well, we're on Potter Road, so we pull out, and as soon as we open the doors, there is black smoke just moving across Potter Road from east to west, because it was a windy day that day, and this was the smoke in the area. I'm like, what the hell, you know? So we go up there and follow the smoke, and we wound up having 24 townhouses on fire on this particular day, and under various construction, the way they were constructed, we had 24 townhomes going. On top of that, all the balconies of the units that were already built, the 6 stories, all the patio furniture was on fire on these units too, right? So I pull up, and fortunately I had a guy from the city who was doing construction there. He helped me get a supply line. I was very much appreciative of that. But my whole thing was, I got to get this deck gun going. But Maynard Williams pulls 1 3/4 inches just to do something, just to get some water on something to try and cool it down. And within a minute of him laying the line on the ground, the whole line burned through. So I knew the gun was as hot as the air was, right? So anyway, long story short, I said, all the paint on the top of the rig starts to bubble, right? I couldn't worry about that. I looked at it and I said, I'm going to catch crap for this, but I can't worry about that, And sure enough, after the fire was over, and it was over in 40 minutes, that's how quick it took. But boy, it was a rough 40 minutes. After that, the chief came over, and he's just kind of looking at the top of the engine, and he shook his head. And then when I got back to quarters, I caught some crap for that. But I couldn't do anything about that. What was I going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't expect to see this thing take it did, and it did. And, we were okay. The guys were okay. And if that's the worst that happened, you should be lucky. But I just couldn't worry about that. What am I going to do? It's done. It's over. Sorry. But we put the fire out. Nobody got hurt. And we did okay. So, I can't worry about what the bosses are going to think. Even as a chief officer, our chief too. I mean, it's your fire. He was never one of the guys who would come into the buggy and send you out to run a sector, and he would run the fire. He would come up to the buggy and say, "Where do you need me?"
Yeah.
Okay, I need a safety. Fine, you assume safety. I need an Alpha Bravo. Your fire, you stay in the buggy. You run this thing. For better or for worse. For better or for worse. And listen, I made a few mistakes and a few losses, but I think everybody says the same thing. Everybody can pretty much say the same thing. I think I had more wins than losses, which is always, couldn't worry about that kind of stuff. It happens. It happens. And so anyway.
Well, that's why I asked the question, because
that's it.
I feel like sharing when you've made a mistake and you've learned from it, the more people hear that, then I think the less people are likely to jam on somebody once they make a mistake, right? Because it's all about learning. It's all about, like you said, you can make the mistake, but in the moment, you can't let that affect you. You got to keep working. Like, you can't have it shut you down. and worry about what hell you're going to catch for it. You still have a job to do. So that's why I love just asking that question in general. So yeah, a cool story. I love it.
My intention, our intentions are always good.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this, and I mean this, is that this job will humble you. And if it doesn't, and if you can honestly look, it's never been humbled, something's wrong, because this job will humble you, and it's usually you're humbled within the course of making an error,
Yeah.
of maybe getting caught off guard. But I think everybody who's honest with themselves and somebody else will say that, yeah, I mean, it'll humble you multiple times, and you've got to be ready to accept that, because you can build up. I didn't think I it's all part of learning. I learned so much. I'm telling you, the fire service taught me so much. It taught me how to be a better husband. It taught me how to be a better father. And it taught me how to be a man. And never going to would have done that to me. Done that to me. I mean, the fire service really taught me to stand up for things and deal with things and be a better dad, a husband, parent, the whole thing. I mean, you can't put a price on that kind of stuff. And that's why I'm so appreciative that I had the opportunity to get this and grow. Yeah. Because it forced me to grow and be that kind of person. And who knows if I never got on the job, but I do know. So I know how it impacted me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Have you ever lost your passion for the fire service? And if you did, what'd you do to get it back, or what keeps you passionate?
I think that Maynard early on lit the fire, and I was able to keep the fire in the belly, so to speak, throughout. And I never lost the desire. I never lost the hunger. I never lost the passion. I was lucky enough to attend a lot of classes to get my officer classes in fairly early on, and that piqued my interest. I was fortunate enough to train and get better at my job. I don't know. I don't think things fell into the right place for me, although they probably did. But I just feel that I never really lost the desire to be a firefighter, to the respect of the passion. I had some low times, like I told you earlier with those things that caused me to question myself, but I never really lost my love for the fire service. And even now, I mean, I still am involved in the fire service. I work at Morgan Grove. I'm still in a firehouse. I still crave it. I still follow it. I still go to fires. I'm still a geek about this stuff. It's 67 years old, and I'm still doing things. I love it. So no, I can honestly say I never lost any of the passion that I had. I've been able to keep it, and something that my dad instilled in me, something that my mentors instilled in me. There's nothing like it. And I'll tell you, I've had some health issues that I'm dealing with, and so I mean, I just no. Short answer, no.
All right.
It's there. It'll always be.
That's great.
Yeah, it'll always be there. So yeah, yeah.
If you wanted to give someone a sense of how fire service culture should work by meeting one person, who would it be?
Mm, that's a tough one. You know, early on in my career, I went to see all the heavy hitters when they came into town, like Brunacini, John Norman, Vincent, and they had great stories and great presentations. And you know, for a little bit, you kind of wish that you were more in tune with these type of guys. You know, um, I think when it comes down to it, I ran into so many good guys, so many guys that I became somewhat close with, pretty close with, and I don't know that I can nail it down to one guy. I really can't. I mean, Dave Treforest, like I told you, is one of my mentors. Still a student of the fire service. Knows what he wants. Still uh, respects training, respects the job. I think the one guy who we used to bring in to NIPSTA for a talk to the class till he got a little too old to come up north was Eddie Enright. And Eddie Enright was a chief in the city. And I don't know if you'd ever seen that guy. That guy was something else, man. Uh, Eddie Enright was a. Did you ever see him?
Yeah, yeah. I just saw him. He didn't give a speech, but I went and took a class from Southside Fools in Plainfield this year, which they call Macapalooza, which is after Matt
Okay.
McCaslin, and Double E was there, and he was in the back, and he was helping Bob Hoff give his speech, and he kind of threw couple little gems of wisdom in the background, but Double E still, I mean, hearing him talk at all is worth it, right? I mean, it's amazing.
He that guy was outstanding, and he would come up once every class if we could get him up there. And we had a pretty good run of a couple 3 years where he would come up and speak to the class. And the amount of fire service, the amount of knowledge that he has, the presentation that he had was just out there. But everybody else who I've run into has been a very close second because, like I said, I've run into some outstanding people. And when you run into outstanding people like that, if you can't keep the passion up, get out of the job. We'll find something else to do because half this job is the respect and the passion you have to have to do it and do it well. Because there's downtime on our job. There's uh, there's other things that happen on can cause you to sway and cause you to uh, maybe lose your focus a little bit. But guys who come along like Eddie Enright, and he'll put you right back on track, and he always did because as often as he came up there, I would sit in on his presentation. We brought him in, and a lot of the chiefs came in and listened to Chief Enright too, and he's my man. He's my guy right there. I'm going to hang my hat on Eddie. I love that guy.
Yeah,
I love him.
yeah.
So tremendous. Yeah, yeah.
Solid,
So
solid
yeah,
answer. Yeah, I agree. To put, can you imagine being able to just put like an 18-year-old kid who got somewhere volunteer with Eddie for like a half hour? That kid would be set up forever. I completely agree.
right.
So yeah,
They were so in awe of him when we would bring the class in, and you're going to have Chief Enright. He's going to have the afternoon of the class today, and Chief Enright has a history with the city, and um, he was a deputy district chief, I believe, is where his final rank was, and even these kids who were just wide-eyed when they looked at him. You sit there and you look at the way these kids are looking at him, and they're like, holy cow. You don't know how lucky you are to be able to get this guy and listen to him. You don't have any idea. I mean, this guy is he's a gold mine. He's a treasure. You better suck up everything he has. And he would point out kids and he'd say, how many threads are on it? How many times you have to turn a bonnet on a foul? No, no, no. And he'd say 19 turns. You have to have 19 turns. And he said, it's the kind of stuff he taught his guys. He says, how many threads there are on a brass fit, a female brass, no, no, no. And he would challenge him to do the answer. I mean, he was the best. He was the best. Honestly, I'm so sorry that health kept him from being able to drive from the south side up north. We even offered one time. I said, Chief, I'll send a car for you. I'll send a car to pick you up and drive you home. And at that time, his wife was, I think, a little ill, and he couldn't do it. So we kind of stopped that. But a true hero to me.
Yeah.
So yes, Ed Enright, my guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last question here for you. Unless anybody throws anything in our chat here that they want to throw your way, I always offer that up if somebody's got something. But for now, simple question, but maybe it's complex. I don't know. What's the best part of the job?
The best part of the job is that you establish with your team, your group, your camaraderie. The best part of the job for me was always exemplified around the coffee table, the kitchen table. That was where we always gathered. And we were very open at the kitchen table. We cried, we laughed, we joked, we busted balls, we adjudicated, we called names, we had arguments. And the job for me was that. And that was the thing that I missed the most, was being able to sit down at the kitchen tables and just hash things out. That, to me, is where everything in the firehouse that matters happens. And so I miss the camaraderie of sitting down with the guys. I miss the change of shifts. I miss, on both ends, I miss the guys we were relieving in the morning and the guys who relieved us the next morning. I miss that. I miss the joking. I miss all the human things. And that's what I miss the most. I couldn't possibly say I miss the paperwork. I'd be lying if I said that, right? But I missed the coffee table. And every time I go into a firehouse, they've got some tremendous looking kitchen tables that have fire hydrants for legs, that have insignias varnished over on their table. There's some beautiful, beautiful tables in these firehouses, and that's what I honestly miss the most, because life happened right there. That was it. And even when the new guy got a new guy, you can't let your new guy drift off to another place because he's the new guy. You got to grab him by the collar and get him involved and explain to him that, yeah, I know you're on probation, but this is where you belong. You have a voice at this table. And especially when we're talking shop, and even when we're not talking shop, you have a voice at this table, because that's where everything in the firehouse happens, man. It's at the table. It's at the kitchen table. It's unbelievable how therapeutic that can be. And I have a kitchen table at home, but I don't have the same type of fun around that I did at the firehouse. I love that. And that's what I honestly, and it's not just the table. The table's just that. It's the guys who surround the table. That's it's like everything else. Change is inevitable. Guys are going to come, guys are going to go, and guys we're only placeholders until it's time to retire. And it's but still, all in all, is that everything happens at a table. I like the fact that when it came time to eat, everybody had the same seat. Everybody had a seat. The boss sat at the head of the table like it was his family, and Steve picked out his chair. Lenny had his chair, and this and that. And it was like when we came to train after lunch, we'd call everybody back, everybody in the kitchen, black shift to the kitchen or whatever. Everybody would sit in their own seats, and we'd have great training sessions there too. So that's it. That's what I miss the most: the camaraderie and the banter around the kitchen table. The ball busting that went on there. I don't know any other place that has, and you got to take advantage of that. The thing that, and this is an opinion of mine, that when I first got on this job, we had 12 beds in the bunk room with no walls, just 12 twin size beds. There was no partitions. There was nothing to separate. In all these modern firehouses, you have your own room, and you can go in your own room and shut the door and not even bother with the kitchen or sitting at the table. I don't view that as a plus. I don't think that that's a plus. I think that in this job, you have to be close to your crew. You have to know your guys' wives. You have to know the problems that they're having at home. You have to understand everything, and it all comes out at the table. So I miss it. I'll always miss it. Had some great cups of coffee there. Had some gut-busting laughs. Had some tears at that table, but no other place like it in the firehouse. I love it. So if that was, I don't even remember if that was your question. What I missed the most. That's it.
You're right there.
That's what I missed the most.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah. John Skillman in the chat here, he's agreeing with you, and I agree with you, and I'm sure many, many, many other people would agree with you, right? So it's a great answer. How can anyone argue that? But that's gonna do it for us, Mike.
Yeah, I hope not. Yeah.
I hope this isn't the last time that we chat, and hang out with me for a little bit. We'll close in the green room, but I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all your stories and sharing everything. So thank you so much. And if anybody needed to get a hold of you or wanted to get a hold of you, how could they do so?
Email, I guess, or my cell phone. What should I give you?
It's up to you. It's just, somebody was listening and found something, wanted to talk to you further about it. If you're willing to throw that, we can see.
Let me give you I can give you my cell.
All right.
How about that?
Yeah.
847-828-6627.
Oh, you cut out. Hold on. The last one more time.
7. And they can pay. 847-828-6627.
There it is.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
Well, thanks again, Mike. And,
thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and have a great night.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Hey, thanks a lot. I